Good day, grade 12s. I hope you are fantastic. Welcome back to another exam revision lesson with Mr. T. And as always, I'll be sharing my approach to grade 12 maths, and I really hope that this lesson will be relatable and beneficial to you. And before we start with the lesson, please make sure that you subscribe and you hit the like button, okay? So in this lesson, we're going to be talking or going over the November 2022 DBE mathematics exam, particularly question 6, which is financial maths, one of my favorite topics in mathematics. And yeah, let's begin. All right, so the first question reads as follows, and I'm pretty sure by now you all know the routine. We read the question at least twice, okay? And in finance, I can't emphasize enough, it's very important for you to really understand the information, okay? So the question reads as follows. It says, 12,000 was invested in a fund that paid interest at M% per annum compounded quarterly. After 24 months, the value of the investment was 13,459 rands. Determine the value of M. Right, so now you've read the question, you're like, oh, okay, I think I have an idea of what they're asking for. Let me just, read again to really get the bigger picture of this, okay? So it reads as follows. 12,000 was invested in a fund that paid interest at M% per annum compounded quarterly. Let's just take that first section and just break it down, try to understand what are we given in this section. So 12,000 was invested. That's the principal amount. P equals to 12,000. Right? That's how much you've invested. Remember, the principal amount is the amount that you invest, okay? And it earns M% per annum. The M% is your interest rate. So you're going to say your I equals to M%. Right? But they said that it's compounded quarterly, right? So you're going to say, oh, okay. Means that it's divided by what? Divided by 4, because how many quarters do we have in a year? We have 4 quarters, okay? So it's compounded quarterly, therefore we divide the interest rate by 4 because it means we're going to earn interest 4 times in a year, okay? And then they said after 24 months, let's look at that as well. Let's take a look at the 24 months as well. What does it mean? So after 24 months, it means that the duration of the investment is 24 months, okay? So now let's convert the 24 months into quarters, right? So that's going to be our N. We're going to say, okay, 24 months. We can divide it. How many months are there in a quarter? There's 3 months. So we're going to divide the 24 by 3 months, right? So it's going to be 24 divided by 3. It gives us 8. So it means that we're going to have 8 quarters. Okay? Or alternatively, what you can do, you can say, okay, how many years is 24 months? It's 2 years, right? How many quarters do we have in a year? We have 4. So then you're going to say, okay, it means that it's going to be 4 times 2, which gives you 8 quarters. Okay? Ultimately, you end up with the same answer, okay? So then this is going to give you 8 quarters in the 24 months, in 2 years. The value of the investment was 13,459. So after the 24 months, the value of the investment was 13,459, meaning that's our accumulated amount. Should only be A. It's going to be 13,459. Okay. So now, before we do the calculations, let me just really emphasize this. In finance, unlike other topics, we only round off the final answer. Okay. During your working outs, you don't round off anything. Okay. You just keep it as it is. You only round off the final answer. Why? Because rounding off can change the final answer. Just a mere rounding off can change your final answer, okay? and we don't know what the consequences of that are. Okay, so they always advise us. Well, at the time when I was still in school, they advised us to not round off until the final answer. So I'm just passing the advice over to you guys, that only round off when you get to the final answer. In finance as well, I studied, well, I am a qualified investment banker. So in finance, tertiary level, they also advise you to do the same. You are not allowed to round off during your working out. You can only round off the final answer. Okay, so please do take that advice. Don't take it lightly. Rounding off can have serious consequences because these questions are so straightforward, very simple, but if you round off, it can change the final outcome, which then can result in you losing marks. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so the formula we're going to use here is going to be the compound. Why? Because they said this is compounded quarterly, right? 1 plus IN. Okay, and then you're going to come here, then say your A is 13,059 equals to, the principal amount is 12,000. Then you're going to have your 1 plus the I, that's going to be M over 4. Okay, and then we're going to have our 8 up there. Then we can work out everything. You'll see what I meant by don't round off. This cancels that, right? I keep this fraction as it is, because remember, you're a grade 12 learner, so you're allowed to use the scientific. Then I'm going to do the 8th root. Okay, this section that I'm doing now is just algebra, it's not finance, okay? I'm literally using algebra to work this out. Then I'm going to say the 4th root, not the 4th root, but the 8th root of this fraction, 13,459 over 12,000. It's going to give me 1,014. Let me write the one properly. 14446. Then on my calculator, I leave the decimal as it is. Okay, I don't erase it. Okay, and then I'm going to transpose the 1 to the other side. When I subtract by 1, I'm going to be left with 0.014446 equals to M over 4. Then I go to my calculator as well. The answer I have, the 1,0444, I just subtracted by 1. Right, it's going to give me exactly what I got here, 0.01446. And then I multiply this by the 4. I also do it on my calculator. M equals to, I'm going to say the 0.0144 on my calculator multiplied by 4, it gives me 0.057784. Then I can multiply this by 100. Then from here I can round off 5.78%. There we go. Do you understand? So from here going down, I left my answer as it was on the calculator. I just made, as I'm adjusting here by the calculations, I'm also adjusting on the calculator so that ultimately I can end up with 5.78%. Okay, so if you ask me, I didn't round off anything until the final answer. Okay, I hope that is crystal clear. Let's now go over to the next question. Okay, before we start with this, yes, I mentioned something and I would like to maybe elaborate on it. Yes, I studied BCom with specialization in investment banking or investment and banking. I'll tell the story on a different video when we do get to know Mr. T type of thing. There'll be a few questions that will be asked, and one of the questions that will feature in that video is just, am I qualified at anything? And yeah, you'll get to hear more about how varsity was like for me and why I chose to study BCom, even though I did sciences in high school. Okay, so let's now get back to work. We're going to look at question 2. Question 2 says, on the 31st of January 2022, Tino deposited 1,000 in an account that paid interest at 7.5% per annum compounded monthly. Okay, he continued depositing 1,000 on the last day of every month. He will make the last deposit on the 31st December 2022. Okay, number 2. It further says, sorry about that. Will Tino have sufficient funds in the account on the 1st of January 2023 to buy a computer that costs 13,000? Justify your answer by means of an appropriate calculation. Okay. Again, at this point, you're just absorbing the information. Now you're going to read to understand, right? So it says on the 31st of Jan, mark that. That's when it starts, right? Tino deposited 1,000 in an account that paid interest at 7.5% per annum compounded monthly. So the 1,000 was deposited into an account, meaning that's going to be an installment, right? That's our X. Okay, we are looking at a future value here. Then it says in an account that paid interest at 7.5% per annum compounded monthly. So then you're going to say, okay, your I is going to be 7.5% over 12, which you can also write as 0.75 over 12. Okay. Then it further says he continued depositing 1,000 on the last day of every month. That's how I knew that it's a future value. It's an annuity, right? He continued depositing 1,000 on the last day of every month. He will make the last deposit on the 31st of Jan, right? So now we're going to use that to work out our N. So it started when on the 31st, it ended on the 31st of December. And they said he deposited on the last day of every month, meaning every month and from 31st Jan to 31st December, this guy has been constantly depositing 1,000 into this particular account. Okay, and then we just have to count how many months that is. It's going to be 12 months, right? You put your 12 there. Then we go over to the future value. What's going to be the future value? It says, will Tino have sufficient funds in the account on 1 January 2023 to buy a computer that costs 13,000? All right, so we are looking for this. We just want to know now, will he have enough money in this account where he was saving, right? In this account to purchase a computer that costs 13,000. Okay. Justify your answer by means of an appropriate calculation. We've already established and identified that we're looking at a future value. So we're just going to copy the formula X 1 plus I n minus 1 close bracket all over I. Then we substitute everything. 1,000 1 plus 0.05, not 0.5 but 7.5 over 12 close bracket. Our n, they said compounded monthly, so it's going to be the 12 from Jan to December. 12, correct, minus 1 close bracket all over 0.075 over 12 equals to. Then we put this in the calculator. 1,000 open bracket open again, 1 plus 0.075 over 12 close bracket to the power of 12 minus 1 close bracket power 0.075 over, sorry about that, all over 0.075 12. There we go. It then gives us a future value of 12,421, comma 22. There we go. This is how much Tino will have in his account at the end of December. Okay, so will he be able to afford the computer that costs 13,000? No, he won't be able to afford it. Why? Because he has less than what's required. Okay, he's required to have 13,000. He only has 12,421. That's like 500 and something down on what he's supposed to have. Okay, so you can then just like they said, will he be, meaning that you have to explain yes or no, then you provide your explanation. He has less money than what's required of him, which is 13,000. 13,000. Okay, I hope that makes perfect sense. This was straightforward, just like the first question. Again, as you can tell here, I didn't round off until the last question. Okay, then let's go on to the next question, which is going to be question 3, right? Now, question 3 reads as follows. Thabo plans to buy a car that costs 250, right? He will pay a deposit of 15% and take out a loan for the balance. The interest on the loan is 13% per annum, compounded monthly. Again, we're going to read this again. Thabo plans to buy a car. This car costs how much? It costs 250. So you can just write your information here. The cost of the car is 250, right? He will have to pay a deposit of 15%. 15% of what? 15% of the cost of the car. Meaning if we had to calculate the deposit, we would say 250 multiplied by the percentage of the deposit, which is going to give us 250 times 15% gives you 37,500. Okay, and then take out a loan for the balance. So whatever is left, Thabo will then take out a loan for it. So it's basically going to be 250 minus the 37,500. This is the balance. So that will then automatically just be the loan amount, right? The interest on the loan is 13% per annum, compounded monthly. Now, the first question says, calculate the value of the loan. Oh, look at that. We've already calculated the value of the loan. There it is. See, how did we calculate it? Simple. Thabo wants to buy a car. He has to pay a deposit of 15% on what? On the cost. You multiplied, like we did here, we multiplied the cost by the 15%. It gave us 37,500, right? The cost is 250,000. We multiplied that by 15%. It gave us 37,500. Now, to get the loan, we have to calculate the balance after the deposit. The balance is going to be, we actually didn't get the final answer here. Let me just finish it off. It's going to be equal to, we're going to say 250 minus 37,500, which gives us 212,500. There we go. Okay, so you then subtract your cost by the cost by the deposit, which then gives you 212,500. That is your loan amount. The loan is how much you are going to borrow after the deposit has been paid. Okay, I hope that makes perfect sense. Let's now proceed to the next question. Question 2 says the first repayment will be made 6 months after the loan has been granted, and the loan will be repaid over a period of 6 years after it has been granted. Calculate the monthly installment. Let's start with the first statement there, right? It's very important. And given that you guys are going to varsity next year, this will also be accommodated by just a teeny tiny piece of advice, okay? So the first repayment will be made 6 months after the loan has been granted. Now, this is where the advice comes in. If you take out a loan, right, from any bank, Capitec, Standard Bank, FNB, Absa, Nedbank, right? If your agreement with the bank is that you're going to make monthly installments, right, to repay the loan, you cannot miss even a single month. Okay? Why? It's not advisable. Why? Because every month you miss, your loan amount gains value. It increases. The cost of the loan increases. So if you miss 2 months, they add interest to the loan. They charge you for missing the payment. Okay? That charge is basically interest. So, for example, with Thabo took out a loan of 212,500, right? He missed 5 months because they said the first repayment will be made 6 months later, meaning he's only going to miss 5, then make the first payment on the 6th month, right? So, they're going to charge him for missing the first 5 months of the year, or of the agreement. Do you understand? So how do they then calculate it? They're going to say, okay, because everything is compounded, they're going to use the compound interest. The P is going to be how much you borrowed. 1 plus. What's the percentage? Interest is going to be 13%, which is 0.13 over 12, close bracket, for 5 months. There we go. I'm going to do this. 212,500, open bracket, 1 plus 0.13 for 12, close bracket, to the power of 5, right? This is going to give us 224,262 and 53 cents. Okay, now this is how much Thabo is gonna owe the bank on the 6th month when he starts paying. Okay, now a lot of varsity students, especially those on bursaries, be it a government bursary or it's private, after receiving your allowances and so forth, I mean, I was a student at one point, so I went through this. We purchase phones, right? And obviously, out of excitement, you buy an expensive phone. Some retail stores will allow you to get an expensive phone. And then you start missing payments. By the time you want to settle the debt or you want to continue with your installments, you find that you owe more than the payments you've missed. Do you understand? You find that you owe what you have missed plus the additional charges of missing payments. Do you understand? And this is very common. A lot of varsity students get phones, and a lot of us are not able to even pay them off. Do you understand? So you are in grade 12 and we are doing finance now. I'm giving you a piece of advice. Don't get too carried away. Don't get too excited and get a phone that's too expensive that you won't be able to pay off. Okay? Always live within your means. All right? That's basically the piece of advice that I wanted to share with you guys, because a lot of us fell into that trap. You get a phone, you miss payments, and you think to yourself, okay, now, man, I'll just make up for it. By the time you want to pay, you find that you owe them like a lot of money. You owe them what you do owe them plus the interest. Okay? So, Thabo now owes the bank 224,262 and 53 cents. Okay? So, they said the loan will be repaid over a period of 6 years after it has been granted. Calculate the monthly installment. So now we know it's a loan So we're going to use PVX open bracket. Let me use a different color. PV equals to X open bracket 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of negative N all over I. Then you substitute everything. The loan amount is 224 now. 262.53 equals to X. That's what we're calculating for. 1 minus open bracket 1 plus. It's going to be the 0.13 over 12 close bracket to the power of. Then to get your N, you're just going to say the 6 years, because it's compounded monthly. It's going to be 6 years. You multiply it by 12. It gives you 72, right? But remember, he has already missed 5 months. And we've calculated the cost of him missing the 5 months. And that cost is included here. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the 5 months from this. Because we've already included the cost of missing the 5 months. Meaning that Thabo is only left with 67 months. There we go. To settle this debt. Okay? There we go. Then you're going to say 0.13 over 12. Perfect. And then we proceed. We're now going to multiply everything. This is going to give us 262.53. We multiply this with that. Remember, no rounding off. So I'm just going to put this on the side. Multiplied with that, and then it's going to be equal to X open bracket 1 minus 1 plus 0.13 over 12 close bracket to the power of negative 67 close bracket. Then we can divide both sides by that square bracket there. Then you divide this side as well. 1 minus 1 plus 0.13 over 12, close bracket to the power of negative 67, close bracket. Then this here, this bracket is going to cancel that. Then you're going to say your X is equal to, then you take this, you're going to put this in your calculator as it is. You're using a scientific. So trust me or believe me when I say this, that entire number they can fit, all right, into your calculator if you punch everything correctly. And then we're going to do just exactly that. I'm trying to type as quick as I can. There we go, to the power of negative 67. There we go. It gives me 4,724 rands and 96 cents. There we go. There's my answer. Okay. Let me remove the arrow so that you don't get confused. Bring the X closer. There we go. So the final answer is 4,724 rands and 96 cents. Okay. So this is pretty much it. This is actually the last question of finance. And yeah, remember, if you have any questions, I've allowed for comments. So if you have any questions, you can just drop your question in the comment section. Then I'll get back to you as soon as I can. In some instances, I might have to record videos to clarify some of your questions, okay? So, yeah, I hope that this was very helpful. And until I see you guys again, bye.